Okay, guys. Hey, welcome. I haven't done a video in a really long time, but I really wanted to do this one. This one was really important for me to do. As you can see here, we're in X-Plane 11. I've been learning how to fly intensely in the simulator. It's been a lot of fun. I've been working with like real pilots in real life and kind of going over some things. And I work on a militarized version of the 737. That's what we're looking at here. I'm going to simulate flying an American Airlines flight. Anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you. So a lot of my friends and family have asked, how do you fly, kind of thing. So I want to show them kind of the ins and outs of it. It's really quite easy. Commercial flying is relatively simple, and I just kind of want to show that so people understand. As we get into the cockpit here, see, I'm going to make sure the GPU is connected, the ground power unit, external power for maintainers. And as you can see here, so this is really cool because you can open up all the doors and you can really simulate, loading and unloading and stuff like that. Cargo, passengers, everything of that sort. So, yeah, but so basically, though, I just wanted to kind of educate people. Just quick disclosure, I am not a pilot, and by no means a pilot. This is not to teach you how to fly. Just because I do this in the sim does not mean you can do it in real life. Please don't try to attempt this in any way. For any random people that watch the video, this is purely just a hobby for me. But as you can see, all the doors are open. It's really cool, and then we'll close them. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of, for people that don't really know how planes work or how they operate, like what does the pilot do when he's up there? I'll give you in a nutshell one method. There's multiple methods. This isn't the only way to fly a plane. Okay, this is an easy way to fly a plane. This is a perfect scenario way to fly a plane. Okay, so just note that. And so we're gonna get going here. We're gonna start by turning the battery. Okay. Once the battery comes on, we'll have power. We're going to turn on external power or ground power, depending on how you want to call it. And then now we have power to all of our crucial systems. And our batteries will be charging, and we won't be draining the batteries. We're going to clear our master follow, master caution. We're going to get a lot of those throughout, just because the jet's getting configured. No worries there. But yeah, that yellow and red there, that's your master caution and master warning panel. And now I'm basically just setting up because isolation valve you want on auto. The ignition, we're going to turn to both. And then we're going to get our lights set up here. Turn the anti-collision on because we're going to be on APU shortly. We're going to turn our fuel pumps on. We don't have any fuel in the center tank. So we're not going to turn those pumps on because we don't want to burn them up. So we'll just leave those fuel pumps on to get ready to turn on the APU. So we can get an APU generator and get off external power, and we can get that cart out of the way of the aircraft. So we're going through our checks here to see our voltages. And right here, we're going to align our ADARUs, or our navigation. So, and then right there, it shows at the top, you see the 1. I have it sped up because realistically, it would take 8 minutes. I don't find it necessary to wait for that amount of time when I'm in this, so I have it sped up. It's a setting in the jet, so it'll take a minute, and then our ADARUs will be aligned, or our navigation will be aligned, and it will know where our location is. So as you see here in the FMC panel, I'm going to put our alignment. I am going to put our reference airport. We're going to fly from Tallahassee to Tampa in this one. So we're starting at KTLH, which is Tallahassee International. We're parked at gate 1. And we're going to make sure our lights are set so we can see everything nice and clearly. Even though we're not going to fly at night, it's still kind of, I like having the lights on just to make sure. Turn our electric hydraulic pumps on. Got to make sure those are on so we can get our APU and we can test our flight controls. Until engines are on, the engine hydraulic pumps will not be used. So in order to have hydraulic power on the ground, we have to use our electric pumps. We are going to start this APU, and you see that gauge right there that I circled. That is going to be the EGT. So you see how it's rising? That means our APU is starting. And that's basically the temperature of the APU. If that spikes to an insanely high level, that means you probably have a fire or there's something crazy going on. So it's kind of how you can tell when you have like an APU fire. And see, it's going to spike to 8,000 and then it's going to come down and rest. And then that's when you know that your APU is stable. And then from there, we can get on our APU gens. So that's what we should do next. And get off external power. See right there? We got the APU gen ready light. That means our APU is fully functioning. And most airliners will sit on APU until they push back. And APUs do not use, in comparison to an engine, that much fuel. They sip on fuel in comparison. So that's why you will typically just sit on APU while you set up your flight plan and get ready for your flight. Most jets carry plenty of extra fuel to where the fuel used on the APU won't affect the total fuel for the flight at all. Typically not a concern. We're going to turn our APU bleed on here. That's how we get air conditioning. And then see, now we'll kick on our gens, get off that external power so the people on the ground can move the cart out of the way. And we'll just double check that the external power went off, and it did. And see here on the tablet to our left, we will disconnect the GPU and get that gone. And as you can see, the GPU card is now gone. So we are clear. Our path is clear. Our jet's loaded. Now I just got to get ready for flight. Just double check and make sure everything's good. See, our alignment is done. That's how you know that your ADRUs are aligned. And now we can do our flight plan because our navigation is on. So see, the KTLH is still entered in our FMC. So we're still just going to put that there. That's our origin airport. We're going to put KTPA for destination because that's where we will be landing in Tampa International. We are American Airlines Flight 0011. So we will put our flight number in there. And then we will put the runway we'll be taking off from today, which is runway 36. And that's how we're going to set up the initial part of the flight plan. We'll get into the perf here. And our cruising altitude today will be FL. Probably double checking our charts right here. We're going to be doing FL 27,000. So 270 is 27,000 feet. We're going to get our CG fix, our planned fuel, our amount of reserves. So that's the reserve fuel. That'll be 1,000 pounds. Our cost index, you get that from the flight plan, which I will pull up here in a little bit. I will show you how you get some of that stuff. And then from here, you can hit the exec. You don't have to. You can wait. But if you hit it, it just saves it and makes sure that it's entered properly. And see here, I just popped up on the screen. So this is how you get your information. This is SimBrief, a website that simulates creating flight plans, similar to how pilots would really do it in real life. This is for simulators, though. This is not a real life. This is not a real life thing. Do not use this for real life flying. But see, I'm sorry, the extra fuel is 100 pounds. I forget what the 1.0 is. But anyway, you can still see there where I get all my information. It tells me my fuel. There's your cost index right there I just highlighted. So that's how I got my cost index number for 54. Because before I even got in the jet, I had my flight plan fully made, and I had this on my other monitor. So I kind of knew exactly what I needed. And then there it shows you the route on the map. That's, in a nutshell, how we're going to fly to Tampa today. Air time's 47 minutes. Total time will be an hour and 15 minutes. And so that's how basically, yeah, once you have that done, it's just plugging that information into this. What we're looking at here is the FMC. And see here, I put the fuel in. I should have done that. But yeah, we're going to use 17.5. 17,000 pounds of fuel, which we have plenty. We have way more than that. In the simulator, in real life, they would probably get closer to the actual number. As you can see on the middle upper right kind of corner right next to the landing gear handle, you'll see the 3 fuel tanks center, left and right. I'm well over 17,500. So yeah, just gives me a bunch of comfort room. And that way I know that if, in case I have issues, I have plenty of fuel. Maybe I have to go into a hold pattern once I get to the airport or something like that. Bad weather gets me into a hold. You never know. So I just like to have it, or maybe I screw up because I am still learning. But for the nutshell, this is a route that I know very well. I fly this quite often, and this aircraft is my main aircraft that I fly. And then it's going to tell us our CG. And right there, it gives you that trim number. That is your stab trim right here. So it needs to be 4.5. So if you see there, you see the dashes. I'm going to go in between that 4 and in between that 5. And we're going to put that at 4.5. That will be our takeoff trim. And that is where the pilots get told that information. And right here this is going to be our cruising speed today. The V2 right there. We're going to take that number and we're going to put it into the autopilot panel. As you see here, the IIS Mach right there. That is going to be how the autopilot knows where to set our speed. I usually add a little bit more. I know we have plenty of fuel, so I might speed it up a little bit. It just depends. But see, that's how you would match it perfectly. And if you know kind of your route, you can go faster, you can increase it. But that is by the book of how to do it. And see, we selected our runway for our departure. So select 36. That is our departure runway. There are no SIDs for this. So we're basically just going to take off and go direct to the first waypoint. And if we go to route, if you hit activate, that will allow you to see so far. See, there's no waypoints, there's no SIDs, but we're going to go. So our waypoint here, which I know I got from the flight plan in SimBrief, is direct to SZW. That's the first waypoint we will hit. And then from there, I'm pretty sure we'll go into our arrival. I don't think there's any more waypoints after that. Nope. So now we're going to get into our arrival. Most of the time, you don't typically know what runway you're going to land at until you're kind of getting closer to intercepting the tower. But just an idea. So you can use these. This is Sky Vector. Use the airplane chart. And I just go ahead and predict my runways. If I actually had tower... so this is Tampa International Airport you see here on this chart. If I actually was using like VATSIM or if I was simulating like real ATC, air traffic control, it would be different. I would not necessarily set up for a specific runway. But in this case, I will, just to make it a little easier and kind of showing you guys how it's done, regardless of the realism side of it. But either way, in flight, you would do the same thing. You would just do it later on in the flight. So, but this is how you set up your arrival. And those are the runway numbers that I'm having. You see 19 right, 1 left, 1 right, 19, so, or 9 left. So anyway, we're going to land at 19 right today. And we're going to transfer from SCW. And we're going to hit exec. And now when we go to route and we hit next page, you will see our flight plan right there. So we're going to go direct to SCW. We're going to go via DARPS 3, and we're going to take a vector. A vector will mean that I have to manually fly to intercept the what's the word I'm looking for? That's how you get on the glide slope. So once I get the vector, I will intercept the glide slope, and then I will kick in the second part of autopilot, and that's how it will take me in for an auto landing. I won't do that in this video. We're just going to take off. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to get in the air and how simple it is once you get in the air that they just hit autopilot and it goes. That's kind of the point to this. It's just set up. I'm not going to do any landings. I'm not going to do anything like that. Maybe at the end, I'll just show a couple clips of landings and stuff from several of the different aircraft that I fly, because I fly more than just the 737, but this is my bread and butter. So here I'm just going through, I'm stepping through my plan to make sure it looks right. It's always good to step through your plan and see here, and now I'm double checking that it looks right, and see there's my vector, and I get right in. So the flight plan looks good. Get it off a plan there, go back to map so we can actually watch our route as we fly. And I'm just double checking everything here to make sure everything is input and that I know all of the necessary information for the autopilot to work properly is in. We're going to set our altitude on the autopilot now. We said we were going to fly at FL 270. So we will get that to 27,000 feet, which it looks like I screwed up. Oh, yeah, I remember. So I did screw that up, and I ended up having to change it in flight because it was yelling at me saying that I was not at my top of my climb. So again, you have to make sure you put everything in right, because if you don't, your autopilot will not work properly. So now from here, I'm going to make sure yaw damper's on. We're going to need that for flight. Go over my switches one more time as we get ready for pushback. Oh, we got to set our cabin pressure. So this is how the cabin pressurizes. You put your altitude that you're going to fly to. I must have been really confused because I put 26,000 even on that. There might have been a conflict in my flight plan and on my FMC, so I don't really know what was going on there. The landing altitude on that chart that was just up, it told you the elevation of the runway you were going to land on. And so you would put that as your landing altitude to know how far it needs to depressurize to. So now we're going to do our pushback. This is a cool mod, or plugin I should say, that you add to the game. This does not come with the default game, but it's pretty realistic actually. And I thoroughly enjoy it. And see here, so obviously in real life you can't pick, but it allows you to get how, so this is how they would push me back in real life. They would just put me back right there and let me hop onto the taxiway. So this is how we plan it. And I think we're all good, so I'm going to go ahead and let him know that we are ready. And now we'll see the tug pull up. And there's our tug getting ready to push us back and get us out of here. Everyone on board is getting antsy. They want to fly and get to Tampa today.
All right, looks like the doors and hatches are closed and we're ready to connect.
So it'll let you know that. And then as the pilot, you would be like, you are clear to connect. And then he's going to do it. And then he's going to tell me to release the parking brakes so he can begin to push. Alright, so now that the parking brakes are released, the tug will push us back, and we're good to turn on our engines. As you see here, I will turn that is the left engine, I will turn to ground. Then we'll begin to spin the fan. No fuel, no spark yet, it just gets the fan spinning. So we'll get that up to over 20. As a maintainer, we usually get it above 22 before we introduce fuel. And once we introduce fuel, you'll see me slide the knob below the throttles. And that will make it go boom. See, we're up to 24. I will bring the introduce fuel, and we will boom. And that is about how simple it is to start an engine. We will let this one build up and stabilize before we light off number 2, the right engine. As you see here, you can see your information. The N2 is your fan, EGT, the inside temperature of the engine, and the N1. All of that is stable. The knob clicks back to auto, automatically telling you that the engine is up and running and fully stable. From here, we will start our number 2 right engine. Same process.
Just about done here. Go ahead and set your parking brake.
Bring it up. All right, they're done with the tug, so I will set my parking brake.
And we're disconnecting the tow. Give me just a moment.
We will turn our APU bleed off now. Just take bleeds from the engines. Turn our packs on. That's going to give us nice cold air for everyone in the cabin. And that's where you can set the temperature I just showed you. So, yeah, that's how you adjust the temperature for the plane. We're going to turn our engine generators on now. Make sure our APU generators are off because we're going to shut the APU off. We don't need that during flight. Once you're on engines supply everything for the aircraft.
And we're disconnected. Signal and pin on the left. Take it
You
easy.
will watch
Have
the
a safe
EGT
flight.
on the APU go down. That's how you know the APU turns off. And IRL, they would drop the pins on the ground to let you know all the safety pins were removed and give you a thumbs up saying you are clear to go once the tug is fully out of the way of the aircraft. We will let the tug go away. And see, there's the hand signal saying that I am clear. We are checking all of our flight surfaces now. Just one last final check, make sure everything looks good. Rudder's swinging. Elevator's moving. Speed brakes going up, spoilers going up. We're looking like we're ready. American Airlines 0011 is cleared for flight. There's the speed brakes right there. Good way to slow down in the air. Just for people that don't know what they do, that does slow you down. Creates drag across the wings. Just a little engine test here. Typically they won't do that, but that was just for fun, just to show you. Just give her a little throttle and to let you hear it a little bit. So we made sure our probe heats are on. Got to make sure those don't ice up because that's how you get all your sensor readings. Check our generators real quick. Make sure we are getting proper voltage, and we are. Battery is looking good. I'm going to tell the passengers to fasten their seatbelts and get prepared for departure. Make sure our takeoff lights are on.
Flight attendants, please be seated for departure.
Okay, the cabin is secured. Have a good flight.
Now we got to make sure our cabin door is closed and secure before flight, so everyone feels secure. Pressurization works properly. We're going to make sure that that door is locked. It went the wrong way a couple times. Make sure we hit that deny button there. That's how we lock that door. Also shows a light telling any people to not come in. So this is the audio panel. This is how you would set up your nav frequencies, your tower frequencies. The arrows you see on the bottom next to the Cat 3 sign, that's how you pick where you're going to hear from and how loud you want it to sound in your headphones. Just to go over that in a nutshell, in the very center above the Cat 3, that is your squawk code. That is the transponder, so ATC will see you flying in the air, and it will show that number. The tower gives you that number before you take off. I may not set it in this one, as it's not important to what I'm trying to show you. That is when we get into the very detailed flight. But realistically, you would have to set that, you would have to turn that on, and you would have to make sure you report your squawk code. If you were to talk to ATC, it would make a lot more sense because you would squawk, when it asks for squawk, whatever, hold altitude, you would say your squawk number and you would say holding altitude, et cetera, et cetera. So that number is very important, and that's how, when they track your flight, they can see you through GPS. If you turn that off, it is illegal. So we're going to do an ILS landing. Again, I'm not going to show this, but this is where you get the information from. I look up the ILS for the runway that I'm going to be landing on at Tampa International, and it gives me my nav frequency that I need to have programmed. So I go ahead and program that ahead of time so I don't have to do that during flight. Just eliminate some of the aspects. So there is your nav radio right there, and you'll see me set it. I won't transfer it over. I'm just going to leave it there, and then I just hit that transfer button, and it's going to just tune it right in when I get close to the tower. Or when I get close to the localizer. Once I hit the localizer, I will switch that over, and then I will hit essentially the auto landing button. It's the other autopilot button, and then it would take me in, and that's how I would do an auto land. And then it also tells you your course up there. Some people don't do this, so in real life they would set the course for the runway they're taking off from in case they have to emergency land immediately after takeoff, or if that airport is closer. In this scenario, again, not important. We're not gonna have to worry about that. So I'm just getting everything preset for the landing at Tampa International. Make sure we turn our flight directors on. This will set a magenta colored fixture on your horizontal horizon, and that will be how your autopilot, that is what transfers the flight controls to the autopilot to give it control. And see, we're going to go ahead and move our heading, just get our heading bug centered on where we're going to take off from. And from here, I will do a third-person taxi, just as I figured you guys might like it. We will have to taxi to our runway. Make sure we drop those speed brakes. Forgot those were up. And from here, the tower has cleared us to taxi to runway. So we will go ahead and head that way through our taxi route. And just a small note, my nose wheel steering on my throttle was acting a little funny. It didn't seem to want to center properly, so it might be a little wobbly. Just ignore that. IRL, it's not that hard to steer the airplane with nose wheel. It was just on my end on my hardware. So something that I have to fix. But anyway, you'll get the gist of it as you just follow the yellow lines. You want to make sure you stay centered on them, because that is assuring you that you have clearance for your wings of your aircraft, essentially. If you're lined up with that, then you are centered in the taxiways. And straight ahead is the runway that we are taking off from, so we know that that's where we have to get to. Typically, tower would be calling out where you're going to hold and where you're going to be taking your left and your rights. So here, though, we're not using tower, so we're just going to simulate it as if. I will not do any holds. I will show you where the hold lines would be, and so you know what the hold, ILS hold or hold before runway would look like. As we taxi, just to give you G-Wiz information, this is something that a lot of people ask, is multiple airplanes have different wingtips. If you see the wingtips on this aircraft now, you see they're split up and down. Well, there's several reasons for why they do this with aircraft. In some aircraft, you'll see the wingtips will just go up. It won't have the split part down. It'll just be the up part. The reason for the wingtips having those on them is because at the wingtips of aircraft, the wind actually converges and can create drag or turbulence because the wind transfers from over top and over bottom of the wing and then gets kind of muddied up towards the tip of the wing. When you split the wing like that, it helps smoothen out the air so you don't have such a collection of rough or, unsmooth air, and that helps release drag and actually make for a smoother flight. Right here is the hold line. Tower would tell me if there was a plane landing, if there was a plane taking in front of me, ready to take off. I would be told to hold here until tower gave me clearance. Tower would tell me that my squawk code, you are clear for takeoff, and then I would accelerate, get on the runway, and we would be on our way for our flight. So as we're nearing the end of this, I just want to reiterate, this is an autopilot flight, fully autopilot. There are multiple ways to fly. Typically, I'm going to hit autopilot way earlier than most people would. I just kind of want to get to the meat and potatoes of it, just to show you how easy it can really be to fly a plane. Again, this is just a simulation. This does not mean you can hop in a 737 and fly, by any means. But for my friends and family out there, this is essentially what we play with and what we do. And it's been a lot of fun talking to the pilots and going over a lot of these aspects because this simulator is very detailed, and it actually has a professional version that real pilots do train on. I have talked to them, and they've actually used this version that I'm using to practice for their instrumentation, to get their instrumentation license. So this is a very realistic simulator and very detailed, and it's as good as it gets. It's as close as you can get to the real thing without paying for the professional simulators and stuff like that. So as we're lined up here, I'll get back in the cockpit and we'll get ready for our departure. Aircraft also has auto throttle. Not only autopilot, but it will have auto throttle as well. So you literally, once you're in the air, it will fluctuate your speed as you need it to, and adjust your heading to follow your flight plan. So you can really sit back, relax, and just watch your gauges and make sure everything is good in the sense of critical departments.
knots.
80 knots, the first officer tells you, and at 120 we pull up. I go off the runway a little bit here. Again, my nose steering was just not acting right. I apologize for that. Please understand that that is not in no way meant
400.
for a realistic thing. I pull my gear up here. I'm going to start pulling my flaps up. We will climb. I am adjusting my trim, is what you hear rolling in the background, because I want to try to get like a nice, good level. And see, I still am not realizing that my auto throttle is off. Again, just something that I missed. I figure it out here in a second. But yeah. So we're going to turn the autopilot on. So now, as you see, I turn the autopilot on. The aircraft begins to turn to that magenta line that you see, and that will line me up for my route. And from there, the aircraft does all the work. It will literally hold the 26,000 altitude that I have set, even though it needs to be 27. I will fix that later in the middle of the flight, but it is just that simple. Autopilot is now engaged. VNAV, LNAV engaged. I will follow the route. It will adjust my speed for me. I am hands off. I am just monitoring the aircraft to make sure nothing funky happens. And that's basically it, guys. That's when you're flying in a plane and they're on autopilot, this is all the pilots do. It's essentially that easy. There's a lot more to it. Again, I am not going over literally everything. There is much, much more that you need to know to fly a plane. But in a nutshell, in the sense of just the hardware inside the cockpit, that's it. And see, from there, we're going to line up with the magenta line. We're going to turn our landing gear off to the off position. As part of our after takeoff checklist, I pulled the flaps up here. And now the autopilot will climb to that 26,000, follow the magenta line, and we are on our way to Tampa International Airport. Looks to be clear skies, so it should be a pretty smooth flight. Shouldn't have any visibility issues. And we're in. It will hold that speed of 250. We said that in the FMC before. That is what the auto throttle will make sure that we hold. So it'll be 250 knots airspeed. Ground speed will be more than likely faster. If you don't know the difference, you can look it up. But speed is not just speed. There's a ground speed and an airspeed. So in a nutshell, that's it, guys. I will show you a couple clips of some other aircraft that I like to fly. You'll see a Cirrus and you'll see an Embraer 650 Legacy. Those are also some aircraft that I really enjoy flying that I'm learning how to fly. So thank you guys for watching, though. And if you have any questions, just ask.